Okay. I wanted to share, but share. This slide, but I think it's not working. So if it's not working, I think maybe I'll have to leave that. Now, one of the major definitions is given by VI Learning, and VI Learning said development is a progressive movement. He said development is a progressive movement, an ascension from a lower stage to a higher stage, an ascension from a lower stage to a higher stage, from a simple to complex situation. It simply means that development is an ascension from a lower stage to a higher stage, or it can also simply mean a simple to complex situation. This puts to us that development in itself is progressive. By this definition by VI Learning, it simply means that development is progressive. Another definition of development was also given by the Dudley Sear. Dudley Sear, however, posited that when we talk about development, there are certain things we should be looking at, certain things the topic of development or concept of development should be aiming at addressing. And so when we talk about development, according to Dudley Sear, he says these questions must be answered. What happens to poverty? What happens to unemployment? And what happens to inequality? I repeat, according to Dudley Sear, the question of development cannot be answered until these three important questions are answered. What happens to poverty? What happens to unemployment? And what happens to inequality? This simply means that if we are talking about development, there are certain features which must be addressed. And these features are the issues of poverty. These features are the issues of unemployment. And these features are the issues of inequality. By and large, we cannot talk about development and still have a society that is buried in poverty. We cannot talk about development and we still have a vast majority of members of society still living and wallowing in abject poverty, as is the case in most societies. Some years ago, Nigeria was said to be the capital of poverty in the world. Whether that was true or not, but the indices that were provided somewhat proved to be true. But there are other countries that have had to drag such position with us. Countries like India, with high population of over 1 billion, yes, still have some level of poverty. Countries in Africa, such as Sudan, also have high level of poverty. South Sudan as well, and so many countries. So if we are talking about development, according to Dudley Sear, he is saying that we should look at the issue of poverty as well. Meanwhile, we must also understand that poverty is not just inability to afford the basic necessities of life. It is measured per dollar. Poverty is often measured per dollar by the US dollar. How many people are able to afford 3 square meals per day? What is the average level? What is the average consumption rate in the society? Now, the other one which Dudley Sear was talking about is unemployment. By and large, the unemployment statistics as was provided by the MBC National Bureau of Statistics in March somewhat puts the unemployment rate of Nigeria to be about 33.3%. Is that true or not? We know better. But the thing is, if we are talking about development, Dudley Sear using the unemployment as a measure simply would mean that if a society is talking about development, is there still unemployment in that society? What is the population and ratio of unemployment in that society? If you bring Nigeria to that equation, we know better and we know where we belong. Now, another thing again is, in respect to the question Dudley Sear posed, is what happens to inequality? What is the gap between the haves and the have-nots? What is the gap between the rich and the poor? What is the level of social justice in the society? In Nigeria, we know where we find ourselves in respect to social justice. Social justice is almost non-existent. So some people are treated as sacred to some others. If a society where the rich keep getting richer and the poor keep getting poorer and at the mercy of the rich. Now, by and large, Dudley Sear is saying that these three important questions must be appropriately answered And until we are able to answer this question, then such a society is able to ascertain where it belongs in the developmental ladder. Now, the other one is a definition that was given by Pearson. Pearson provided the definition in respect to development. He said, development is an improvement in qualitative and quantitative, or in both. Development is an improvement in the qualitative and the quantitative, or both, as much as in respect to the use of available resources. Now, so what this simply is saying is that you cannot talk about development as just increase in number. You also have to look at what is the extent, what is the impact of the increase in number that the society have attained over the years. Let's bring it back this way. We have had an increase in our population from a population of less than 100 million some years ago to a population of today of over 200 million. This is beautiful. It simply means we have had quantitative increase. But what is the impact of this quantitative increase? Can we boast that the increase in the number of the increase in our population can be qualitative enough to reflect in every sphere of our society? Can it reflect in our education? Can it reflect in our politics? Can it reflect in our social and daily lives? If that is the case, then we would be saying that you have attained some level of development. Now, you bring it back home. Some years ago, what we had less than 20 universities in Nigeria, some years ago, some decades particularly. But to bring it back home, now we have more than 100 institutions, universities. Now, what is the level of delivery of these universities that we have had over the years? Can we say we have had improved level of education at the level of the university? Can we say we are churning out graduates who can compete globally and still have their place in reality? If that is the case, then we would be saying that we have attained some level of development. Now, I want to first bring one aspect of development one aspect of developmental, the definition of development as was given by Walter Rodney in his book, How Europe Underdeveloped Africa. Why I'm bringing this is because we cannot talk about development. And you, as a student of development, you're not going to talk about development all through your study without making reference to Walter Rodney, because this is an important aspect of our study of sociology. Now, Rodney, in one of his definitions, in his book, made mention of what development is. He said, development is the ability of a man to conquer his environment and utilize it to his advantage. In fact, he said development is a multidimensional process. And said at the level of development, he said development is the ability of man to conquer his environment and utilize it to his advantage. Now, what are the resources that are obtainable in our society? Have we been able to conquer our society and then harness the potentials and resources that are inherent in our society to our own advantage? Bringing Nigeria into perspective, we have crude oil in some parts of this country, making particularly the Niger Delta region. Yes, we have been able to conquer that region. We have been able to conquer the resources in that society. In other words, we have been able to conquer the environment. And we have been able to harness the resources in that environment. But have we been able to utilize the resources in that environment to our own gain or to our own advantage? Here we are. Nigeria is running a diseconomy that is laughable in any part of the world. A situation where the country extracts crude oil and then sell crude oil in the international market and then buy the same crude oil as refined product in terms of fuel or diesel or whatever we buy. This does not make any sense. And that is why it is not reflecting in the society. It is not reflecting in the environment. We have been able to conquer the environment, but we have not been able to take advantage of what we have conquered. And that is why we have a society living in abject poverty, a society that is wallowing in abject penury, as the government will want us to believe, and corruption at its peak. So therefore, given all this definition, we therefore now could understand that development is progressive. Development is increase. Development is qualitative impact. So whatsoever conclusion you're going to arrive as your own definition of development, given this scholarly definition, we simply put that development may, or we can simply conclude by saying that development simply refers to the increase in the potential or capacity of a society, socially, economically, and politically. Because we cannot talk about development and not bring into perspective social aspect of it. We cannot talk about development and not bring into perspective the political aspect of it. We cannot talk about development and not bring into perspective economic aspect of it. So development is an all-round issue, all-round impact, all-round increase, not only one-sided. It is an all-round situation where a society have attained some sustainable level of improvement in standard of living, improvement in quality of living, improvement in the social well-being of the members of the society. It is until this, then we'll be talking about the development. Until society is able to attain this level, then we'll be talking about development. Now, bringing it back home, if you're going to look at Nigeria or some other countries in Africa and measure it up with some countries in Europe and America, now you'll be talking about development at par. Now, would you now say that societies of that region have attained development? If you look at that society, such societies, you'll find, or let's even use Canada as a point of reference, you will discover that there's an improvement in their healthcare delivery, there's an improvement in their educational system, there's an improvement in their political system, there is an improvement even in terms of equality, social justice. The same is not, cannot be said with countries in Africa, particularly in Uganda, reference to Uganda, of economically down the drain. A country that social, in terms of social justice, is almost not there. Politically, they are being emasculated by some microscopic few, as is the case with Nigeria as well. But we find that if you even measure it up, even with country Nigeria, we discover that in terms of healthcare delivery, we are nowhere. And that is how our people keep running to such societies, because their healthcare delivery system has attained the level of development that we all crave for. Educationally as well, we find that people run from all this part of the country to, or the world, to such countries. And every other aspect, when you put it up, you see that there's an improvement in theirs and there's an improvement in ours. Now, however, if we are now going to put it side by side, we're not going to look at the issue of underdevelopment, because we cannot talk about development and not talk about underdevelopment. I want to take this before we take questions, then we proceed further. Now, what is underdevelopment? Underdevelopment, just like the concept of development, has no universal definition. What development, underdevelopment would mean to one society is also different to what underdevelopment will mean to another society. As much as possible, societies of the world and organizations are doing all that they can to remove the word underdevelopment. And that is why the word underdevelopment is no longer so much in vogue. So it has been replaced. But what is underdevelopment? It is a process in which a country has not sufficiently developed or attained the status of being equated as a developed society. I repeat this. Underdevelopment is a process in which a country has not sufficiently developed or attained the status of being equated as a developed society. So you find that it is not the absence of development, neither is it a situation where it can be compared to be the opposite of development. No. Instead, underdevelopment is simply a comparison with a developed society. And that is why you see it simply refers to a situation where one society has not sufficiently in the status of society. You will discover that most scholars are now, in fact, the global setting is trying to remove the word underdevelopment from its dictionary when we're talking about country. And sometimes it's being replaced with least developed country or developing country. Least developed country or developing countries. Least developed countries. So sometimes you are going to see LDC or DC, which is developing countries. So you find that, yes, this word or this definition is so because there is no country today can be said to be underdeveloped. Because underdevelopment will mean that you have not risen from the scratch at all. Underdevelopment will mean that you have not risen from the start. You have not take off. You have not adopted processes that could. By and large, all societies in the world, all societies have attained the level of taking off. Every society is on the verge of a process of attaining development. And that is why the definition the word underdevelopment is losing its meaning. But you find the fact that as much as you want to compare with some countries have other countries, especially in third world countries like Nigeria, in third world countries like Nigeria and other African countries and Asian countries, they have not attained the level as compared with countries in Europe and America. And some factors are accountable for this. Factors are accountable for this. According to Rodney, some of the factors that are accountable to some countries being recognized as developing countries or third world countries, as the case would always be, is the fact that most of these countries suffered the evils of slavery and the evils of colonialism and the modern day realities of the evils of neo-colonialism. It is in the process, it is said that the period of colonialism, the age or period of slavery created the foundation for the underdevelopment of countries like Africa. In fact, history has taught us, and so 103, for those of us who were in the University of Abuja, so 103 had taught us that Egypt is the cradle of civilization. And scholars have come to posit that before most countries in Europe and America dreamt of attaining the level of civilization and development, Egypt had long attained the level of development that it had reached. However, historical situations had to play its role, and the issue of slavery can also be accounted for. During the era of slavery, a whole lot of people in Africa were repatriated or were taken from Africa to societies of Europe and America. And you find that, according to Rodney, over 70 million Africans were taken. I don't know if I don't know if I still have the numbers correctly. Either 170 or 70 or so were taken from Africa to Europe and America. And these are the people who worked on the plantations in Europe and America and laid the foundation for the development of those societies. It is their labor, their sweat that laid the foundation for the development of those societies. And people want to now say, imagine that you're taking about 70 million people from a continent at that time. The population in Africa, by and large, is not up to 1 billion. And if it comes to the population of Africa, the 54 countries in Africa is not up to 1 billion. And then you are taking, which even then, I believe was not even up to 200 million. But you're not taking away over 70 million people from this population. And you're not just taking away this population because you're taking children. You're taking the active population. What that simply means is that you're leaving that society vulnerable. And you're taking the active population away. Hence, decapitating the machineries or the joints of development in such societies. The other aspect of it, which Rodney accounted for, is colonialism. And in fact, Rodney in his book said that the roads and the road networks that were constructed during colonialism led from the point of harvest to the point of repatriation to metropolitan states. What this means is that colonialism was simply the basis, was simply one of the factors that totally dislocated Africa in its bid for development. Because when they came, They dislodge our own policies. They dislodge our developmental processes, reintroduce what they consider to be of their own interest, and then enforced it on us. And Africans were forced to embrace this thing, even though some people, even though it was to their disadvantage. And in the end, some of the crops Africans were forced to produce were cash crops that aided the needs of the industrial of the need of industries in Europe and America. So some of these issues. The other one which Rodney made mention of is colonialism. The aspect of colonialism is, neo-colonialism rather. The neo-colonialism aspect of it is the fact that even though Africa had attained some level of independence, but what we have is only flag independence. The fact that we can point and say our flag today is green, white, green. But yet we are simply an appendage of, or an extension of the imperial rule. So the policies that we sometimes have to pass are policies that are imposed on us. We are being dictated to politically, economically, and socially. You find that economic policies are often what the Bretton Woods institution of IMF, World Bank, and sometimes World Trade Organization have imposed on us. And so we cannot, and so they are emphasizing that we devaluate. And so in the early years of Nigeria, in the 1980s and early 90s, we were forced to embrace structural adjustment because it was what the Europeans felt was best for us. And so we had no choice. Our people felt, okay, this was good. They embraced it without really knowing the demerit of such policies. Again, you find that politically, they have told us that democracy is good. And in fact, even those we get to elect into political offices must get the signature, must get the approval of the political lords in Western societies. So this has always been the trend in this part of the world. And that is why in this part of the world, the concept of developing or least developed or third world description seem to fit us, because we have not attained the level of development that can be compared with what is obtainable in Europe and America. So this is what the concept of development simply mean, and the concept of underdevelopment. I'll repeat, development is an improvement in all facets of human society, all facets of society, all facets of human society, structurally, socially, politically, economically, and socioculturally. It simply means that the society have attained an improved standard of living. The society have attained a qualitative, members of that society can boast of qualitative living. Members of that society can boast of improved life expectancy. And members of that society can boast of high literacy level. Do we have high literacy level in Nigeria? Do we have quality living in Nigeria? Is there social justice in Nigeria? Is there poverty in Nigeria? Is there corruption in Nigeria? All the ills, you measure it up in Nigeria and accept it, or tell yourself whether we have attained development or not. Underdevelopment, on the other hand, like I said, is not the absence of development, but it simply means, or it simply can be described as a situation when a country or a society have not sufficiently developed or attained the status of being equated with a developed society. So this is the meaning of the two concepts. I don't know if we have any question in respect to this conceptual clarifications before we go further. Yes, Abdul Wahab Nuruddin. Wahab Nuruddin.
Boss.
Yes.
Good evening, sir.
Hola.
Yo.
How is everything?
Yes, sir. How have you been, sir? We thank God, sir.
Well done.
Well, sir, you have well posited, and to an extent, in fact, you've actually equipped us with more understanding about development. But regardless, in order for us not to misplace development for growth, so what are the things we are expected to differentiate between development and growth? Because according to Inori, he said that development is a checklist of technical artifacts.
Yes.
That is a provision of roads, basic amenities like road, hospitals, and if we're talking about those things, we can see some hospitals are there, there are no doctors, they are not well equipped. Then can we really see that as a development so that we'll not be able to misplace development and growth? Thank you.
All right. Hello, Ola. Okay. I can't hear you anymore, but I think I can come in. Between development and growth. There's a distinction between development and growth. Development is not and should not be mistaken as growth. While development is talking about quality, growth is talking about quantity. In a lay sense, that is just the distinction. Development is talking about, quality. Growth is talking about quantity. Let me put it to us this way. We have had, and in the course of this discourse, I said Nigeria have had an increase in our institution. We now have more than 100 public universities. But can we, at the same time, say that the institutions that we have, can they boast to be delivering quality service as the institution, the few ones we had in the early 1960s and 70s, even down to 80s? Some time ago, Nigeria was said to be the #1 economy in Africa. I don't know if we still maintain that position till date. But if we still maintain the position of being the #1 economies in Africa, can we say that being the #1 economy in Africa, is it reflecting in the lives of the members of this society? Growth is talking about the fact that you used to have 5, now you are getting 10. That is growth. Development is now saying, now you have 10. Is this 10 of importance? Is it reflecting in your life? If I am collecting 5 million naira as salary, and this 5 million naira, I am not putting it into good use, that is not development. So it is more like what some people will say, is it acceleration without speed? That is what it is. You are firing, but you are not moving. That is the major distinction. So growth is simply an increase in the output. Growth is more in economic sense. Increase in the output of the resources in a country or in a society. While development is talking about improvement in the quality of living, improvement in the standard, improvement in the social welfare or well-being of members of the society in respect to the growth that have been attained. So these are the distinctions. Growth is not development. Growth is simply talking about increasing quantity. Development is talking about quality. We can also bring it back home. Nigeria have had an increase in population. And like I said, our population is roughly more than 200 million, the last time I checked. Now, China has have had an increase in our population over the years. And our population of China is, as of today, is more than 1.2 billion. It's more than 1.2 billion. I think it should be close to 4 billion. Can we say that we are having better living than the Chinese? No, we are not. We are not. In fact, which society is supposed to be clamoring? Which society is supposed to be suffering? It is China. Unfortunately, it is the same Nigerians that run to China because the quality of life there is better. So you find that they have attained growth in their population, they have also attained human development and social development and even economic development. So it's an all-round aspect of development that they have attained. What we have just attained is increase in our population. And so that is all. And so our poverty level is increasing. And that is why we can brag to wanting to attain, to remain the poverty capital in the world. Unemployment is skyrocketing on a daily basis, so much that we now have 33.3% unemployment rate. Corruption, nobody wants to drag that with us again. So social justice, that is a word that is losing its meaning in Nigeria. So you find that, yes, development simply talks about quality, which Nigeria possibly don't have. Any other question? Anybody with any other question?
Please, class, if you want to ask question, raise your hand electronically or physically so that I can give you the right to unmute yourself if you have question to ask.
All right. In the absence of any, we can move to the other one, which borders on the characteristics of development. Characteristics of development. There are several characteristics of development, but I want us to look at just a few. And one of such characteristics of development is development is multidimensional. Development is multidimensional. And in the course of this discussion, I have said that development is an all-round aspect. It's a reflection it's an improvement in all aspects of the society. And that is why one of the major characteristics of development is that development is multidimensional. Multidimensional in the sense that it is an improvement in the economic aspect of the society. It is an improvement in the social life of the people or social aspect of the society. Economic aspect, you're looking at a society now being able to harness her potential, economic potential, to her own gain. For instance, Nigeria produces more than 2 million barrels of crude oil per day. Some years ago, we didn't used to have such. Now we can boast of such a quantity of crude oil. That is an improvement. Now, economically. Similarly, economically, we have seen improvements. We have seen improvements in our banking system. We now bank, they now talk about cashless banking system. Cashless transaction or all that. This is because of development as well. We have adopted technologies in our banking system. People now have to use other means of transaction, not necessarily carrying 2 million to Onitsha to go and buy goods. You just need to just travel, make the transfer to whoever you want to buy goods from in Onitsha. This tells you there's an improvement in economic wise. Another aspect of it is an improvement, and another aspect in terms of economy is the improvement in our earning. The improvement in our earning. Our foreign reserve over the years have continued to increase. This tells us there is an improvement. We have also been able to collect money, revenue, generate revenue through taxation and other forms. This is development economic-wise. So the diversification we are talking about, we're not just depending on the crude oil, but venturing into agriculture and other aspects of society is an improvement in economic-wise. This is development. This is one aspect of the dimension. The other dimension can be improvement in our political structure. So we find that we are constantly fine-tuning our political system in order to meet with the global best practices as obtainable in Europe and America. Recently, we adopted the Not Too Young to Rule bill in order to allow for younger members of the society to participate in the politics of the society. We are trying to move from the usual hustle and puzzle of voting the manual way to wanting to vote electronically, even though there are so many intrigues related to it. But it's a development in its own. So you find that development is multidimensional. That is one of the basic characteristics of development. The other aspect of development, the other characteristics of development is that development can be evolutionary or revolutionary. Development can be evolutionary or revolutionary. In fact, it is the evolutionary process of development that Charles Darwin talked about when he said that society moved from simple to complex. Just like the human cell will move from simple to complex. And just like Lenin did say, that development is the movement from one stage, a simple stage, to a complex stage, or from a lower stage to a higher stage. That is evolutionary. So societies generally would attain development via evolutionary processes. And by evolutionary process, it means that it is piecemeal, it is gradual. The revolutionary aspect of it is such that development happens rapidly. The difference between evolutionary and revolutionary is that evolutionary is gradual. Revolutionary is spontaneous. It comes with full force. And this can be reflected in all aspects of society. When government decides to put up certain policy, such policies can trigger development instantaneously. Imagine a government, our own government, giving a policy, or adopting a policy that can trigger revolutionary development. And what are some of those policies that government can adopt that can trigger development spontaneously? Imagine that government is saying that all the lawmakers in this country are committing all their resources, the money we give to the parliamentarians and even to the executive, we want to channel it into infrastructural development. Just imagine the kind of development we have. It will be so rapid. Sometimes we vote about 54 billion, sometimes 34 billion in buying cars for legislators. Imagine that we are saying that we are no longer channeling this money to them. The bogus allowances that they take, we are no longer going to give them. We want to channel it into development. We will attain rapid development. And this is the type of development that was attained in Asia. The Asian tigers that we celebrate, this is the kind of development they attained. It was revolutionary. They took pragmatic action, and then they were able to get the pragmatic results. So one characteristic is that development can be evolutionary or revolutionary. Another major characteristic of development is that development is a continuous process. Development is a continuous process. And when we say it is a continuous process, there is no stop to it. There is no stop to it. If we attain one level of development, the next thing we'll be doing is I want to attain another level of development. There is always something to wanting to change, something you want to aspire for, something you want to continue to fine-tune to meet up with global best practices. We bring it back home this way. You find that every year, government will say, okay, we want to create roads. And then by the time they create road, give it another few years, government will want to, okay, let's create this road again. They will scrape the same road, recreate, just to fine tune. Okay, tomorrow we are able to provide more roads. The next thing we want to adopt a railway system. Now we have railway. The next thing we'll be saying, oh, this railway, we want to adopt the This tells us that yes, development can be continuous process. And in fact, it is a continuous process. There is no stop to it. Once you attain one level, you will always want to attain another level. Now, another thing again is that development is all about change, modification, or alteration. And then it is also about adaptability. Development is always about change. It is always about modification. It is always about adapting, which I said earlier, adaptability. we are going to have, in our drive for development, we are going to have to change a whole lot of things. Today, government talked about, we used to carry money to travel in order to go and buy goods. But because of development, we have to change it. We now say, okay, we can now go cashless. Because of development, we have to modify certain things that we do. Okay, we used to do it this way. We are not saying, no, we are not going to do it this way. Look at the coronavirus pandemic. It has brought about a whole, as much as it has changed the setting of society, it has brought about development. I tell you, if not for coronavirus, you and I would not be having this interaction via Zoom. It is simply the handiwork of coronavirus. Nigerian institution never for once imagined a time will come in history that they will have to alter the mode of interaction, alter the mode of delivery to becoming electronical. So yes, it is all about changes. It is all about modification. We have to modify. And while we are modifying, a whole lot of people will have to adapt. Whether you are used to it or not, you will have to adapt. We have so many lecturers who cannot use Zoom to provide to lecture. But because of changes, many lecturers have been forced to adapt. Some have had to take courses just so they can adapt and deliver. So yes, development is all about change. It is all about modification or alteration, and it is all about adaptability. Another major characteristic of development is that development can be quantitative or qualitative. In fact, development is both qualitative and quantitative. Development is both quantitative and qualitative. Quantitative in the sense that there is an increase in number, and also there is an improvement in respect to the numbers that the society have gained. So if you used to have one, you now have two, and this two is reflecting it, and it has brought about improvement. These two that you now have has brought about improvement. That tells you development is about quantitative and qualitative. Another aspect of it, which is the last aspect I want to take, is that development is always directional. Development is always directional. It is always directional, and sometimes this is one of the arguments of the critiques of the modernization theory. And the modernization theories would say that development is simply about adopting Western ideology or modern ways of doing things. No, this is not what I mean. What I mean is that development always have a direction. There is always a goal at which it aims to attain. If you are setting an agenda, it doesn't happen anyhow. There is always a projection. Some years ago, Nigeria set an agenda for itself that we are going to be one of the most developed economies in the year 2020. Well, we are now in 2021. We don't know how far we have come with attaining that target. But the point again is that development always has a direction. It is progressive and it is improvement. So these are some of the characteristics I felt we should look into. Any question? Any question from anybody? In the absence of any question, can we proceed? Now, we'll be talking, okay. Okay. We'll be taking on the dimensions of development. Now, I don't know what doctor has given you in respect to this dimensions of development. I don't know what he has provided, but I know for sure that the dimensions of development can be human development, economic development. It can also be sustainable development, human development, economic development, sustainable development. Now, I will take them one after the other, one after another. human development, economic development, sustainable development, and social development. Social development. It is important I add this. Now, let me take the economic development. The economic development is something we have always talked about, in the sense that this is the one of the most important aspects of development, and it is often the focus of many when the issues of development is being discussed. Many people just talk about the economic aspects of development. This is because it is the premise upon which every other aspect of development can be attained. Like you and I, being a student of Marx, would say, when Marx said the economy is the infrastructure upon which the other is the foundation upon which other institutions are built upon. Without the economy, every other aspect of society would not stand. This is simply a pointer to that. A country attains economic development when the resources of that society are being harnessed to its advantage, like Rodney would put it. So you find that economic development is simply emphasizing on improvement in the economic capacity, improvement in the economic capacity of the society. This can be in terms of its revenue generation. This can be in terms of its output. This can be in terms of its available resources as obtainable. For instance, the improvement in Nigeria's revenue generation, improvement in our resource base, I mean resources in the society. We are no longer having only crude oil. We can boast of coal, we can boast of columbite, we can boast of any other things. That is economic development. So, and the other aspect can also be the total transformation, and then which is reflected in economic growth. There's an increase in our output capacity. So this is economic development. So economic development is simply emphasizing all the economic aspects of it. Now, the human aspect of development, or the human dimension of development, is simply improvement in the human capacity. Improvement in the human capacity of a society. Now, what this simply means is that a society has been able to attain a high level of development because of its increased human capacity, population. Ideally, and this is always a debate, ideally, human population is supposed to be an asset. But how is the case of development in a society where that is not the case? Nigeria, with her massive population, the argument is, have we attained the development that we require? Having this massive population, can we boast that the youthful population that we have, which compose more than 60% of the entire population of this country, can we boast that our youth can lead the future? Are our youth empowered to take on responsibilities? Do they have the needed capacity to provide for themselves and for others who are depending on their well-being? This is human development. Human development is simply emphasizing on the empowerment of members of the society, their productive capacity. Aside education, you and I are in school, yes, but can we boast of the fact that when we finish whatever we do, we are studying? Can we boast of a place tomorrow? We have so many out-of-school children in their millions. Are we talking about the fact that this is development? No. If we have so much millions of youth out of school, this tells us that we have not given priority to human development. Human development is giving priority to the aspect of development in terms of the human capacity. It is also talking about employment. It is talking about better nutrition and health services. that members of that society can have better, good food to eat, that members of the society can require health services and actually get it, that members of the society can talk about their participation in politics and not be intimidated or marginalized, that members of that society can participate in all aspects of societies without being relegated to the background. So human development is an emphasis in the empowerment of members of the society politically, culturally, and economically. It is an empowerment of members of society. So they get the basic necessities that they require that will make them productive citizens. If you now bring it, look at the population of countries like China, and you look at our own population, you will realize that we have not attained the needed human development that we require. A vast majority, we have 774 local governments in Nigeria. We have 36 states in Nigeria. And then we have 360 reps and 109 senators. Go to the various states' houses of assembly. Are in places of authority in all of this. In all of these political structures, how many youths are in places of authority? Have the government prioritized the well-being of members of the society? Have the government prioritized the need to provide members of the society with the basic necessities? And so that is why we are talking about poverty. That is why we're talking about unemployment. So human development has not been given attention to. So the essence of the dimension of human development is that it is simply talking about improved, empowerment in the capacity of members of society, politically, socially, culturally, economically, which will make the members of society productive and able to contribute to the development of their own society. Now, the other one I talked about is the social development, which in some cases, people can want to call territorial development. Social development. The social development is emphasizing on the fact that government has to prioritize provision of infrastructure. Provision of infrastructure. A situation where the relationship between the rural areas and the urban areas is broadened, so that the society can attain the needed level of development it requires. So when we talk about this social aspect of the development, it is the provision of the basic necessities which are required in the society. I don't know if doctor is going to give you something contrary to this in some of these dimensions, but if it does, then we're going to look at it further. But the social aspect of development is emphasizing that the social infrastructures, such as good roads, potable drinking water, healthcare services, and all the likes, are appropriately provided and adequately provided as may be required. And lastly, the other aspect of development which I want to dwell on is the sustainable development. Sustainable development. And this is the major aspect of development that the whole world is wanting to concentrate on. And that is why we now have the sustainable development goals and all the likes that comes with it. Sustainable development is emphasizing on the fact that, yes, when a society have attained the development, it simply means minimizing the use of exhaustible resources in order to continue to generate the needed wealth that the society requires. Minimizing the use of exhaustible resources in order for society to attain development as it's required. If we have a population of over 200 million, are we harnessing the needed? Are we harnessing the potentials in this population to attain the development that we desire? Have we improved every other aspect of the society? Are we concentrating on environmental safety? Are we concentrating on the issue of global peace, on the security? Are we contributing in ensuring the civility of members of society and all that comes with it? It is simply a general stock of issues of development, ensuring that that which you have attained, you are able to sustain it over time. So this is it. Any questions so far?
Okay, you are well done. So for a beautiful and laudable work done. And then, okay, my question is, with all the effort the Nigerian leaders have been doing to ensure that development take a good face like the other developing nations. So what are the factors responsible for these efforts not being seen in reality as it were or as it is in other countries that Nigeria started with? At least today, to some extent, though because of the population of Indians, but to some extent, if you talk about ICT, they are the leading in the whole world. Talk about medicine, vaccine, and some of those other pharmaceuticals, they are taking the lead. And then there's so many of other, like the Asian tigers. So what are those factors militating against the ideal development of Nigeria, and how can this be improved for us to have a better way forward since we have the resources? That is my question.
All right. The factors militating against our development as a people and as a country are: one, we have had bad leadership over the years. Bad leadership. Leadership is a major factor. The development of countries like the Asian tigers and China was prompted by the nature of the leadership they had. They had visionary leaders who could project and look into the future and realize that if we don't do this now, we're going to have citizens that will suffer for it. We're going to have members of the society who will beg for it. So they had to sacrifice. They had to lead by example, and they were able to attain their development. The same is not our case. We have a followership system where members of the society, we have a leadership system where people are so self-centered, amassing wealth at the detriment of members of the society. Leaders who are not visionary at all. They lack ideas. And this is, if you want to bring it back home, look at this administration. It seems to be out of option as to what to do. And that is why the government can wake up overnight and begin to issue threats. No, condemn and express shock. No, that is not what we're talking about. We're talking about action. Do you have a vision? Do you have the capacity? So this is one of the issues. We have bad leadership or lack of visionary leaders. Another aspect of it is that we have had bad policies. And bad policies are always the bet of bad leaders. Bad policies because our policy approach is always top-bottom. Top-bottom. We don't have policies that come from the people. So we have people who will sit in their confines and just feel like, I wake up this morning and this is what I feel I should subject the people to. No. There was a time when one-time Minister of Agriculture in this country said that he will buy 10 million phones for Nigerian farmers to boost agriculture. And people were like, what is the correlation between buying phones for farmers and boosting agriculture? So you find this is the type of policies that someone will just wake up overnight and then begin to make. It makes no sense, even though it didn't get to see the light of day. But what we're saying is the fact that we have had bad policies, policies that are not people-oriented, policies that don't come from the people. So they can just make policies, dish it out, not considering the fact that if this policy is working overseas, the terrain and environmental issues in this country are different. It cannot work. The sociocultural issues are different. It cannot work. So bad policies account. Another major factor, again, is bad followership. Bad followership or sycophantic leadership. That is what we have. We have followership systems that like ideas, followership systems that do not know what they really need from government. followers that are divided across different lines. And it doesn't work that way. If you have followers who are attentive, followers who are pragmatic, followers who ask questions when they need to, bad leadership in some ways would have been curtailed. But we have followers who are divided across religious, political, and ethnic lines. So when I talk about a leader being bad, someone will say, oh, he's doing well. Someone is praising him because he or she is getting 1 naira from such a person. Ideally, if you have followers who would demand accountability from those they have elected into position, then we'll be talking about attaining development. In Nigeria, we have had leaders who have embezzled wealth, yet go to their village and are celebrated. Leaders, when if the government wants to even prosecute them, you have leaders who will buy who will make placard, followers who will make placard and go on the street and then chanting solidarity with such a leader, even though they are suffering. Then the other factor that has also militated against our development is the issue of corruption, exacerbated corruption. We have a society where mismanagement of wealth is the order of the day. Everybody is centered, has prioritized aggrandizing what is meant for everybody. The commonwealth of the people is being embezzled, and so nothing is being done. So government can wake up overnight and say, today we have used over 22 billion naira for COVID-19. In what basis? How? What? How? People, these questions we ask. Okay, we have given COVID-19 loan, we have given 300 billion. Where are the people that got this money? These are questions. These are some of the issues. Corruption that has risen to its highest level is what we are experiencing, and it has continued to militate against development. And one other factor is the continuous influence of the Western societies. The continuous influence of the Western society. The truth is, whether we like it or not, the Western societies are not committed to wanting us to develop. They want us to remain where we are so they can continue to exploit us. And that is why Kwame Nkrumah, in one of his remarkable speeches, said, we look not to the west, not to the east, we look forward. Ours is a society where our leaders have continued to run to the Western societies to seek their legitimacy, to seek their approval for policies, to seek their approval for all this and that. But in reality, they will dish out these policies to you, but the policies are not meant to better you. The policies are meant to perpetuate your servitude. And that is what we have. So the continuous dependence on these Western societies is one of other factors that has kept us where we are. So these are some of the issues. Until we correct the anomalies that we have, until followers become pragmatic and demand accountability and insist on it, until leadership is chosen based on ability, not based on popularity, we will continue to get it wrong. Until we are able to fight corruption head on, we will not get it right. So these are some of the issues.
Okay. Abdul Wahab, unmute yourself. Unmute yourself, yeah. Abdul Wahab, and go ahead. Yeah.
I've done that.
Okay.
Thank you, our teacher, our mentor, our role model. Kudos to you, sir. Sir, let me just put it these ways. Maybe during our undergraduate days when we were thinking about development, there was a bit dimension about this development. I don't know, probably it's part of the course or it's part of the topic given to people who were around when Dr. Kari actually shared it. But probably maybe in our next class, we can actually help us to deal with some developmental program by past or successive governments. By that of the Marshall Plan, probably part of the Asian Tigers, if not, maybe probably South Korea and maybe the one in Nigeria, this ALGP, so that we can get more equipped in case if such questions are such questions in our exams, we'll have idea how to tackle such questions. It's just a suggestion, sir.
No, we'll do that. It's another topic that we are going to look into. But the next time we meet, I think maybe soon enough, we'll look at the theories, then we delve into those developmental strategies. I want us to take us piecemeal. We are going to take the theories, then we talk about the developmental strategies that we adopted, so we'll move forward.
Yeah, I think Abu Wahab observation is part of those things are part of the outline given to us, and it's part of the outline that he will be treating. But before then, the theories come first. The theories and the applicability is one of the important things too. So
yes.
I think is highly on point. Any other person? Please, is there any other person that have anything to say, so that we'll release our, because of other activities?